Yeah, this is the workshop summaries that happened yesterday. The chairs will just give 5 minutes each or 10.
The slides disappeared. The slides disappeared. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to just give a summary about this workshop that we had yesterday on supporting switch ASIC offload. The primary goal of that workshop was to promote Linux API, Linux ecosystem offloads and switch dev offloads to switch ASIC. And I started with a roundup on all the updates to switch dev that have happened in the past year. The primary being resource management. We have talked about resource management many times in switch dev, BOFs, and workshops previously in previous NetDevs. So that resource management did receive some updates. We have failures from the reported from the kernel on hardware errors on programming routes or FTP updates. I did also talk about bridge and routing updates in the context of switch offloads. We did talk about newer ASICs coming with larger scale and the need for scaling forwarding entries up to 500 or 1 million entries. Networking features that received a boost for offloading to switch ASICs were policy-based routing. So the switch ASICs usually offload them via ACLs. Self-test. Networking code has been getting a lot of contributions to self-tests these days, and offloads and switch dev was not an exception there. And there are slides available on the summary of all the updates and a lot of references to patches and code references in those slides. We did have guest speakers, Maddie Kadosh from mellanox. He did give an intro to Spectrum 2 next-gen ASIC, which comes with larger table sizes and things. And he talked about some ideas on implementing Resource Manager in MLX SW, which is their open source switch dev-based switch ASIC driver. And we did discuss resource management failure handling. Shujit talked about, actually I would say he wanted to give a World Cup update, I would say, but we told him to lean away from that and talk a little bit about missing pieces in building a Linux NOS. And he did talk about the need for a generic abstraction, whether it's SI or P4, and there are switch dev, another layer of switch dev abstraction maybe, and also resource management, need for resource management. Prem from Barefoot, he's another hardware vendor who was a guest speaker. He did talk about Barefoot programmable hardware and the current thinking about how to offload to a programming hardware. And this has been talked about in the TC workshop as well. Maybe Jamal will be covering that. But yeah, P4 and whether it's a SI, which is off non-Linux, or a Linux TC or XTP or switch dev abstraction-based offload to programmable ASICs. That's all I had. And we got heckled by Jamal to get off to finish on time. Any questions? Okay.
Any questions? No. Thanks, Rupa.
Okay.
Alex, you want to go next? You don't need slides.
I just sent you the 2 slides I
Okay. Then why don't I go and then you go? Right. Send them to Alexander. Where's Alexander? Alexander? Yes. Okay, so we had a 3-hour session yesterday. I'm working on some documentation. I spent about 5 minutes teasing the crowd with what the document looks like. I have about 30 pages so far. I put a proposal for arbitrary metadata setting for TC. So this is within the scope of just the TC pipeline. So from the classifiers to the actions, loops within the actions, loops within the classifiers, an ability for user space applications to specify with brand new kernel code without using the SKB fields. And the proposal was to use the SKB CB structure. Marty proposed a flexible parser in context of P4. This was essentially so P4 has, you can write arbitrary protocols on P4. And Linux, you tend to have fixed dissectors, and people don't like it when you touch that dissector code. So he proposed a BPF extension to the dissector. Antonin from Barefoot talked about the P4 Linux architecture suggestion he made that Rupert touched on. All the slides are going to be online, and the video is going to be online. This is just a summary to let you know what happened. Vlad, sitting over there, has an exciting updates to the updating classifiers. He shows it going from 100,000 updates per second to 500,000. He's got a lot of patch sets. He's got about 5 or 6 still. Yeah, it's a total of 60 patches. I'm very excited about what he's doing. Kong connected remotely and talked about the QDISC locks, and he has some suggestions on about 4 proposals on how he would improve that. Get rid of the locks, use RCU. It's an RFC level, so he's probably going to be putting out some patches on the list sometime soon. That's all I had to say. Any questions? Okay. Are the slides from Alex there?
Okay, so did they have slides or not? I've got DisplayPort, don't have HDMI. So I can just go if needed be. If nothing else, the slides will be posted later. Anyway, so for the IOV workshop, covered 3 areas. The first one being Mac VLAN. I basically went over the recent fixes we've had to do to Mac VLAN in order to get it fully functional on the 2 drivers that we're currently supporting the Mac VLAN, or AKA L2 forward offload. I got it. Thank you. All right, so do I have mini display port?
Is that a good one?
Hold on. Yeah, this is mini display. I need like full-size display port. Anyway, basically covered the fact that I have a set of patches that are currently out on the Netdev mailing list to support TXQ selection via what I'm calling a subordinate device in order to work around the need for NDO select queue. And then during the discussion session, one of the things that got pointed out is that we may want to look at supporting OVS using this, just because at that point then you could use it as a bypass to essentially bypass some of the switching logic for OVS, which would be an optimization. So that's one thing we may want to look into doing. Second topic was SRIOV using paravirtual, aka VirtIO, as a standby path. The patches are in the kernel now for supporting that, at least on the kernel side and the QEMU side. Sounds like we have an agreement between Red Hat and us in terms of Red Hat owning the QEMU bits. And then one of the things that came up was that we may, in terms of hiding the lower devices, one of the ways we might be able to get away with doing that would be to create a namespace and have the lower devices basically live there, which actually, from the sound of things, that may actually resolve a number of issues we were seeing, and may actually make this whole setup a lot cleaner. Let's see, and then, oh, there we go. Okay, so, yeah, if we move on to the second slide, or I got the slides control here, right? Okay. And the last topic was vhost data path acceleration. As far as that went, it was mostly general discussion on the topic. Since this is kind of a new thing, just with a brief explanation in terms of the mix, the fact that it's a mix between emulated and or paravirtual and direct assigned functionality. We didn't make any final decisions there. I don't know if this is really even the right venue to be making the final decisions on any of it, but it's one of those things where I just wanted to bring that to the conference just so that people were aware that that was going on. That's pretty much it.
Any questions?
Questions?
Any questions? Questions for Alex? Okay, thanks, Alex. So many you want to go? Okay, you got so many slides? IPsec? IPsec. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is Stefan here? Stefan Schmidt? Yeah, just come and talk. Just give a summary. You go last. After this, after.
So I'm here to give the quick summary of the IPsec workshop that we had at Dresden earlier this year. This was sponsored by SecUnit. It was the first of its kind, and we had about 25 people out there. They represented various pieces of the IPsec stack. We had people from Swan, the user space packages, both strong Swan and open Swan. We had people from the drivers doing the offload. We had people from the stack. It would help to have the slides. All right, so I think that everybody came out of the workshop feeling really good because for the first time we saw the thing from top to bottom. There you go. So the summary of the workshop is available on the website listed over there. And I think that seeing the people working on the other parts of the stack, then your focus was actually really helpful. I know that the Swan guys, especially the Libre Swan and strong Swan guys, had never met face to face, so this was really good for them. The topics that were discussed in the next slide the topics that were discussed are listed in the workshop notes, and you can see that they covered a lot of things. That's the next slide. We discussed net filter features. We discussed new Linux support for features like BFP, hardware offload status, especially in the face of virtualization, QoS and IPsec, some of the new things that we had not anticipated, crypto async callbacks. There's a whole bunch of range of things. Virtual XFRM interfaces was interesting to Android, for example. So being able to cover such a wide range of topics was possible because everyone was over there. So that's pretty much the summary, and you can find detailed notes in the workshop notes. So any questions? Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, okay. I didn't know that. Okay. So that's pretty much the short summary. And
thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks. Hello. Okay, Stefan?
So good morning, everyone. So no slides from my side. I fell asleep yesterday in my hotel room. Sorry for that. So just a short summary on the IoT networking protocols workshop from yesterday. So it has been John Hong, Alexander, and myself presenting on mostly on 15.4, 6LoWPAN, and on the LoRa work John Hong is doing right now. So we had a little bit of feedback coming from the audience on what kind of gaps we have still in the subsystems, what kind of stuff they need for real commercial applications. That was really good, because the work we are mostly doing have been driven by our own interests and not really what kind of commercial aspects are there. And then we have been talking about the LoRa subsystem, which is kind of interesting because there's also a discussion about that going on Netdev right now, and there's a different approach coming from there. So it's good to see that Jian Hong and Andreas Ferber will work together on that. So what else did we cover there? Yeah, so we also had interest in different header compression techniques. So one person came to me and asked about ESP header compression. He's going to have some students working on that, so we try to get that rolled into the other 6LoWPAN header compressions we have already set in. And there's also some interest in static context header compression that is really useful for something like low-range, low-power networks like LoRa, for example. So, but haven't really seen much development in that area yet. So, yeah, I think that's all. So, questions on that side?
Any questions? Well, thanks, Stefan. We'll take a short break, and our keynote speaker will at exactly what time? What's the next session? 9:20? Whatever the schedule says. So we got about 15 minutes to go. Maybe 15, 20.